No, I'll share with Linda. That's
All right.
fine.
We're good.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting of October 10th, 2023 Bylaw Charter Review Committee, and we have a full contingent, so we have a quorum. No public here for public comment. There's the review and approval of minutes for September 8th. Would anyone like to make a,
Go ahead.
I'll move to approve, excuse me, the minutes from September 8th.
thank you, Noreen. Second, Sandy. Any other comments?
Yes, I so noted that the minutes were approved, accepted, should say 5-0, not 4-0.
All right,
I
do you
will
accept
correct
that
those.
correction?
Yes.
All right, any other corrections or adjustments? All those in favor? Aye.
Yes.
5-0 this time.
Got it, Linda.
Okay.
All right, new business. Chapter 2, Town Meeting Discussion. You're on, Deb.
Yes, I am. Here I have, so I'm sorry the print is so light.
Oh, wait a minute, I have an extra
Printer.
one.
We can share.
I can go through each section one by one, when everyone has a copy. We can start with section 1, organization and powers. As you can see, I've read through them. There are no proposed changes, and stop me if anyone has any, comment. Under section 2, warrants, the only proposed change I see to 2.2.1 is Board of Selectmen to Select Board, and we know that's throughout the charter. That'll be part of that. Again, with the warrant, the last time we had a meeting before Linda was chair, Anita, Sandy, and I talked about the warrants, 14 days. Remember the whole conversation about the 14 days? Are you okay with this language in here, or do we want to change the language?
Well, the only change I would suggest is that they would be required to send a copy of the warrant directly to every member of every household. Not every member, to every household.
Okay, so instead of shall be posted in a public place, which should be anyway, correct?
In addition
In
what's
addition
there.
to that, mailing a copy of the warrant.
We should also probably add media, because they do publish it on the town website. So maybe it should be,
How about stakeholders? Is that anyone of interest that would have?
that could be
would
business people, that could be
Well-
non-residents,
All right, so let's,
I would just say one
To
of every
public-
household
to every household.
Just keep it simple.
having a registered voter.
I would add media, because right now they can't post it on the town website.
It is on the town website. I
But it
think.
doesn't say in here
Oh, I
that that's an
see, yeah.
accepted posting place.
So my question was about, I mean,
I
are there
don't know.
really places in each precinct that they post it?
Post offices.
Post offices?
Offices.
I don't believe there's a post office in my precinct. I could be wrong.
Which precinct are you in?
4.
Yeah, the community center. It's posted in the community center and community center. The
Oh,
last
okay.
I knew was precinct 4.
Community center is precinct 4 also? Okay, so it is in
It-
every precinct.
And I
Or
know
it
that
has
in
to
my
be.
post office in Harwich Port, it's always on the board.
Okay, I didn't know. I have to travel more.
Yeah.
Right.
And as a courtesy, we post one here in town hall
Right,
also.
right.
Sorry.
And, you know,
would it be
I'm,
local media? Sorry.
that's right.
I think just leave
Just
it
the-
media,
Okay, including the media. Okay,
because the next thing you know, it can't be on YouTube.
right, okay, all right.
You know, I know these are, for the most part, preliminary ideas. I don't know personally if I agree with the part about mailing to each home, but that's an idea out there for discussion, so just saying.
Well, I often hear people say, gee, I never saw the warrant, I never got the warrant. Not everybody gets the newspaper, not everybody goes
It's
to
the
post
Chronicle.
office.
Right.
Not everybody goes to the community center. In fact, I will bet you if you took a poll, you would find that the minority of people who visit any of those places.
Correct. And
Would
it is,
would you mail to households? Because many people are on the town email for 911 calls and et cetera.
I'd like to know how many.
But I mean, could we also include emailing to people?
The only thing I would say about that is it might get complicated to sort out the emails from the non-email.
Good point. So basically, we should provide to the house, each household.
Having a registered voter.
Yeah, so you've got at least 14 days before the meeting.
Yeah. Mailing a copy,
With a copy to be mailed to
Every
every household
household.
with a registered voter.
having a registered voter, including the media. Well, that shouldn't.
Well, media-
no,
media is just-
separate, yeah. Also including the media.
I
Okay,
would say maybe specifically on the town website.
Well, yeah, that's,
I think that's
Media
a little clearer.
including town website.
Media.
because if someone wanted to print it from the website, they
Yeah.
could do
They
that
could
as
do
well.
that as well.
And I wanted to say one other thing to Noreen. There are other towns that do send the warrant out
Okay.
to every household.
I-
That we
I
used
didn't-
to.
I didn't mean I was.
No,
Yeah,
no, I
okay,
understand.
but just, I didn't mean I was against it. I just meant I hadn't thought through that process yet.
Sure. No, but just some
Yeah.
information.
Yeah,
There
no,
are other
good.
towns that,
We
have
actually
done.
used to do that.
We used to do.
Every household would get a copy of the warrant. You want to encourage people to come?
You want them to be informed, et cetera.
Yeah, it's probably a great idea. I just,
I can also say that even though we provide a copy at the post offices, I can't think of the last time I went to the post office and started reading all the notices on the bulletin board and ran through a 30-page warrant and stood there and studied it.
Right.
So I think if we want people to be involved, informed, and be ready to ask questions, this stuff has to be mailed to them. I know the pushback is going to be the
It's
cost.
money.
I don't know if this is the right section to ask about this, probably no section. But a problem that I always have is that since the warrant is scanned, you know, if you try to print, you know, the capital plan out of the, you know,
Oh.
warrant package or anything like that, you know, it's impossible. You know, it would be lovely if there was an actual, you know, real copy from a computer on the town website somewhere, but I guess that's just an individual problem that only people who really want to dig into something have, you know.
That's more of a procedure than an actual policy, what we're stating here. Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, section 3, procedures. Again, there was discussion in the past regarding the annual election of town officers shall be called under clause 8-1-1 of chapter 8. The annual town meeting for transactions or other town business shall be held within the first 7 days of May. Remember we discussed that? Instead of the first Monday in May?
That's, I think, and it's something that they clearly wanted, and it's a mystery to me why it wasn't taken. I
Does 7 days work in terms of,
would say the first full week.
first full week,
First full week
First
instead of
full
the first
week.
7 days?
right? Because Michael Ford's
Within the first, okay.
sorry.
No,
The-
no, no,
the
you
in-
got it.
The interpretation when I held that position was if, if
May
the
started on
May,
Wednesday.
Yes.
right, you'd go to the following week. The
And then
first
that- now
full week
you're-
in May.
so the first full week in May?
First full week in May.
Excuse me. So, when I was reading this, I was thinking, I was wondering if we wanted to extend it to like the first 2 weeks. But the reason I brought that up was, like you say, let's say it started on a Wednesday. By saying the first full week, you've eliminated the opportunity of using that first Saturday. And, you know, that might be the perfect day for you. You know, it might have all the right, you know what I'm saying? You've only got the second Saturday as a choice. You don't have that first
Well,
Saturday.
If you want to cover that, then you put it in as the first 10 days.
I was going to
Right,
say, what
that's what
about
I
the
was-
first 10 days?
Yeah, perfect. All right.
Anita?
I don't know, just from my standpoint, I think even if the first fell on Monday, we would push it to the following week. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's a first full week, no matter what. It's, less cumbersome, I think. You know, you just, it's set in stone, first full week.
So say it
No.
falls on a
So you
Monday.
still have the opportunity to meet on Saturday.
You do have the opportunity to
Right,
meet on
right.
Saturday,
Yes,
which would be the first Saturday.
Well, would be
Would
the
be,
second.
be the second Saturday.
Right.
However, it's still the
Well,
first.
it might be the second Saturday. It might
Could
be the
be.
first
With the
Saturday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if May 1st is a Saturday.
Right.
I like the first full week.
I like the first
Full week or 10 days? Full week, first
Full week.
Full week.
Full week.
Okay. Okay.
All right, we're all set with that. Section 2-3-2. The only thing I saw here again is select
Go
board.
back- go back
Up, up, up.
To, we've got the annual election on the first full week of May.
Mhm.
I am going to suggest.
Annual
that
town
we-
meeting.
Town
Annual
meeting.
town meeting, rather. I'm going to suggest that we give some thought to returning to the original charter, 1987, and requiring a fall town meeting. What the original charter did was it had a town meeting in May to deal fundamentally with the financial stuff, and a fall town meeting to deal with zoning and bylaws.
Okay, so you're saying a full town meeting in May, and don't split it up like we have been?
No, a full town meeting in May for the financial stuff, and
Oh, you-
a fall town meeting for zoning and
Okay.
bylaw issues, because that was how it was done in the beginning.
Was that worded so that it's, because annual town meeting is clear, that's the annual town meeting, and you only need 10 signatures on a citizen's petition.
Well, a town
Anything
meeting,
else would be a special?
unless it was included in the charter as a regular town meeting, and then it
Okay.
would have
Two
operated under the
annuals.
same.
So basically, we're saying 2 annuals,
Correct.
an
which
annual-
would actually cut town meeting in half. Because if you're doing the financial stuff here, you may be able to get through in a day, you know, a night or a day, and then you've got the rest of the stuff. It's
Right,
not
and
a,
it doesn't specifically prohibit, and it didn't specifically prohibit possibly having articles, you know, in that were not necessarily one or the other in a town meeting if there was some great reason to do that. You have some financial thing coming up in October, well, you've got a special dealing with zoning anyway, so, you know, you get it in there. I had this bookmark too.
well, she
Um,
looks, you,
The language that existed with the original, before it
Chart,
was
yeah.
messed with, the town meeting shall also meet regularly in the first week in October. And they did that first week with that.
Okay.
To consider and act on matters of planning, zoning, and all other matters of a bylaw nature, as well as to consider and act on such other business, including matters involving an appropriation of funds as may properly come before the meeting. The meeting shall be continued on other days until all articles in the warrant have been acted upon. So, they did, this did stipulate that an article calling for funds could only be included in the October town meeting if it had been agreed to by both FinCom and the Board of Selectmen, which is what we do for a special anyway.
Yes.
So I don't know why the fall town meeting was done away with. Maybe Anita can shed some light on that. It
Yeah.
seemed like a fairly capricious thing to do at the time, but that's just my read on it.
Well, at the time, I was part of that. And one of the selectmen at the time had come to me, and we had a great discussion over this. History would be that we'd have our town meeting, we'd have, then following that, we'd have an election for any appropriations. So you'd have your election, your town, and then you'd have your town meeting. How did this work? Wait a minute.
Well, originally,
I'm trying to think because we had our election first. And so the new board members would be sitting at town meeting the next day.
Okay.
not a good idea.
Well, this is the way it happened. We
Yeah.
had our election on Monday, town meeting started on Tuesday,
Yeah.
and any appropriations or anything that would happen went on a ballot in June. So you had an election in May, a town meeting in May, and then another election in June. And one of the selectmen
For
came.
2.5 stuff.
For 2.5 stuff, exactly right. So one of the selectmen came to me, and we decided, it was voted on, obviously, we knew what the 2.5 overrides were going to be anyway, and we were going to change it, because it didn't make sense that an elected board member, even a town clerk, would be elected on Monday and put in the position on Tuesday.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Well, it did work for, it did
but
work.
It was kind of counterintuitive to have you be elected selectman on Monday night and be sitting on the board
Right,
Tuesday night with no real idea of what the heck you were looking at.
right. So
The
that,
person who would work through it is now out in the audience somewhere.
Don't
was
they
the
have to
pur-
be sworn in?
They'd have to be
People
sworn in
must
the
sworn in at
next
town-
morning.
at town meeting,
They
Michael
were sworn
Ford
in at town meeting.
Oh, okay,
Before the
okay.
meeting. All the elected officers were.
sworn
Well, I
in
don't
at
think we
town
want to
meeting.
go back to that.
No,
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 no.
but that's just some history as to why it had gotten changed. Because we figured, back then, the warrants weren't as extensive as they are right now. So condense them. If you needed to have a fall town meeting, it could just be a special fall town meeting, which was fine. And it worked. It worked.
Well-
And maybe now would be an opportunity to go back to the original
I think
and,
we're in a place where there is so much more complication
Right.
with respect to zoning in particular, growth issues, planning issues.
Correct.
That people, time at town meeting, everybody's exhausted, dealing with some of the most complicated issues we have. And, fall would seem like a better time to do those things, separate and apart, and then you're not trying to scramble to do everything all at once. Even on the town side, I would think it would be, just the governmental side, I think it would make sense, because then they wouldn't have to worry about those things in the spring. And they wouldn't have to worry about the spring things in the fall. They could focus
Could-
on, in two separate packets.
well, things were a little
The
less.
the opposite side, though, is, I worked for a company that we closed the books every 4 weeks. So you were always dealing with closing. You were either planning for closing, you were in the aftermath of closing. It was hard.
How does that apply here?
I'm just saying that if you're planning for a town meeting here, but then you're planning for another one here, it seems that there's an awful lot of time going to be spent all through the year, always planning for town meetings.
You kind of are anyway. You really are.
But now you're going to have
Jill starts
to,
the countdown the day after town meeting, for the next town meeting.
I know, but we just said we're going to propose mailing the warrant to all the registered voter households. We're now going to do that twice a year. So considering what postage is, because it would have to be first class, because if it was indicia stuff, it would take a donkey's age to get there, and it wouldn't get there by the time town meeting happened, if they're going to be doing it within 14 days. So the cost of each mailing to 6,000 households could be up there. We could be adding a chunk, and then you're going to add another chunk in the fall. Is that in the best interest of the town budget?
I would call it money well spent, but maybe.
But it's the other side of the picture.
I understand. I totally understand that, but if we're looking to have more participation,
That's the
better
key.
participation, better understanding, better attendance, and people not being dragged through, 74 articles, maybe you'd have 2 town meetings of 35 or 40. So you'd only be meeting a couple of nights, so it would be probably a little less.
Could you put that microphone closer to Sandy? She speaks very quietly.
She does.
Powerfully,
But I
but
type
quietly.
loud.
Quiet, she speaks quietly, but
All right.
everything is loud,
Don't
what
let
you
her fool
say.
you.
So, yeah.
So, I'm back and forth on this
Well, it's
because,
something to think about.
Yeah.
You don't have to decide tonight, but, think about it, because I think that, first of all, if you had a town meeting in October, a lot of your snowbirds are still here.
it's true.
Yeah.
And you would have an opportunity, if you had some financial stuff you had to do, like voting on a sewer system or whatever, and it was ready to go for October, you could still do that. But it would certainly cut down a lot of the complication, and I think people just get weary after 2 or 3 nights. It's a lot to absorb, and it's confusing, and if there could just be that focus for this part of the year on this part of our governance, and this part of the year on this part of our governance, I think it might help people in the community absorb it better. Just a thought.
Noreen?
Okay, so a couple of little things. This is partly semantics, but I swear I've read somewhere that you can only have one annual town meeting a year. I'm not positive.
There's no prohibition on that.
Pardon me?
It's not an annual, it's a fall town meeting.
Well, it's got to be an annual or a special, whether it's in, no matter what time of
If the
year
charter
it is.
says we have a fall town meeting, we can say that we have a fall town meeting, and we operated that way for many years.
Okay, so how many signatures does a petitioner need to get?
Would still need 10. It would be a regular town meeting, it wouldn't be a special.
Right.
I'm going to suggest something here, which is, if you'd be so kind as to, part of this review, would you check Mass General Law, not this second, and see if the rules are, you have an annual town meeting and anything else is a special. We could talk about this as to whether, how it's worded here is semantics and da-da-da. How about you check Mass General Law?
Yep.
Is there any prohibition against 2, I'm going to call them
Regularly scheduled.
regularly scheduled meetings? Because what we're going after is, if it gets, is the 10 for a private petition, a citizen's petition, or 100?
I believe that we have the ability to write that into our own charter,
But I'd like to-
irrespective of Mass General laws, because it doesn't conflict with the Constitution.
But I think it would be a good idea to find out if Mass General Law has any prohibition against calling something, if you have 2 regular town meetings, is one an annual and therefore one is not?
Well, one is a annual May town meeting, or you could change the name of it to the spring town meeting if you wanted to. This passed muster, and we operated this way for a
40
bunch of
years ago.
Yeah, I don't think much has changed.
But stuff does change, so I think it would
It's worth
behoove us.
checking, but I don't think it's.
But I think it would behoove us to check that and to hold that as a possibility
This is one
for,
of those things a consultant would be very helpful with.
Yes, they
wouldn't you
would.
say?
That's right.
yes, they
And
would.
I had 2 more on that.
Well, let me just write this down under Section 3 procedures.
Because
You know-
if you read the way that the 1987 warrant.
You do
or
have this, right?
Charter read, it says the
Okay.
town meeting shall meet regularly the first week in May to consider the annual budget. The next paragraph, the town meeting shall also meet regularly the first week in October. So
Okay.
the wording is the same. It's on page 3, Deb. 231 and 232.
Yep.
So it doesn't say necessarily an annual. It just says they shall meet.
You know, I'm partly coming from a financial background and seeing municipalities booked the whole time.
Sure.
And ATM,
Right.
Yeah.
phrase that's only used once a year, and that's how
Yes,
the
this-
entries
the
are made.
first
So
week in May.
that's all, I'm just saying,
No,
I
no,
would need
right.
clarification.
Sure.
because-
In
Because
financial
an
and other matters.
ATM
Right.
to an accountant means spring, you know.
Yep.
You heard me, right, Linda, sort of?
Please say it again.
Okay, no, I was just saying, you know, I'm coming from the background of a municipal accountant, and an ATM means spring, you know, and, you know, I've just never heard of an ATM entry, you know, at any other time than that 1 year. That's all I'm saying. It's just that I've never, you know, to a municipal accountant, ATM means spring, you know.
I understand that, but I also see
Right.
this part of it. So I think that to move forward through this, check Mass General Law, and I would probably say put that language in that's in there under your procedures as a proposed change.
Got it, okay.
because then that would be the next time we talk about it, here's what we have, and by then you should have been able to check with Mass General Law as to whether or not there are any prohibitions, because 1986 was a long time ago.
It's changed, but we'll see.
And two other little
Yep.
follow-ups on this section. Okay, so, one, I'll just say, I feel badly when we say to mail copies to each home with a registered voter. And I know that's probably how we'd have to do it, but I feel badly for the non-voting taxpayers, you know.
They don't vote.
I know.
So it doesn't matter if, I mean, in all seriousness, you may feel bad for them.
Yeah.
And they may be able to show up and sit in the peanut gallery on that side.
Right.
However,
Yeah.
they're not the voters.
No, I know.
We're
You're right.
educating the voters.
You're right. So last note on this section, I was just wondering if there's any way, or if we should consider, we're talking about keeping a fall meeting, you know, more concise. Would there be any way, if we wanted to consider eliminating petition articles from a fall town
Cannot do
meeting?
that legally.
No.
You cannot, according to Mass General Law and all the rest of the nonsense that's out there, you cannot prevent
Okay.
a group
I
of
didn't know.
people from petitioning.
Why would you?
Huh?
Why would you?
And why would you?
Because you would just tell them wait till May, you know, because, well, I'm just, you know,
I don't think so.
I think that would become an issue.
yeah, and then we won't do it, I'm just.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
It's a good
Citizens
question.
feel distanced enough from their town government
Yeah.
without losing that right.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we move along to section 232?
232. Let's see.
We're going to make also
special-
an overall global, as Sandy's, she had volunteered to write our report with the changes. I think she's going to have an overall global statement at the top that says, in the bylaws, in the charter, Board of Selectmen has to be Select Board, per
Okay.
article, blah, blah, blah.
So,
So I think she's going to make that global comment.
okay, then.
Global comment about the select board?
Select board, from
From Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
Throughout the charter.
Oh, I'm going to make that global statement?
In the report that you're writing, as we do all this stuff. I thought you said you were going to write the report. Aha! See, we remember that.
All right.
I'm old. What do you want?
I don't remember.
I don't quite, but that's all right. I know I agreed to write the language for the addition at the top.
Oh, that's right, that's,
Okay.
I'll have to go back and check my notes, wherever they are. Okay,
Okay,
moving
do you
on.
want me to read through all this?
I think we have it in front of us, 232.
232, a special town meeting may be called by the board or select board and shall be called that by the board upon the request in writing of at least 200 registered voters.
There you go.
Okay?
That's
Okay.
pretty clear.
All right, 232, I don't have any changes. The quorum for the conduct of business for any town meeting shall be as provided by bylaw. And then 4, in all procedural matters, the town meeting shall be governed by general law, this charter and bylaw. Initiative, by written petition to the select board, any 10 voters of the town may secure inclusion of a subject in a warrant for the annual town meeting, and at least 100 registered voters may secure the inclusion of any article for any duly scheduled special town meeting. Okay?
yeah, excuse me.
Go ahead.
We've had 2 fall town meetings in the last 3 years, and my memory isn't good enough to remember, but I guess there might have been a petition article on there. And, you know, now reviewing this, it occurs to me that they probably should have had 100 signatures, and they probably had 10, you know, but I'm just saying.
They would have gotten kicked out by the
They
Board
would
of
have gotten kicked
Selectmen.
out.
Yeah.
Because they don't like petition articles if they could have found a
No,
ground.
they're very clear, if it's a special town meeting, the town clerk is the one
Yeah.
who is going through, and the town clerk knows 10 versus 100. So no, I would say that,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's a true statement.
Okay.
All right, the moderator, elected under clause 6-3-1, shall preside at all sessions of town meeting. Section 6, rule of parliamentary procedure in a simplified form shall be prepared by the moderator and shall be included in the town meeting warrants prepared for distribution to town voters. Ad hoc committees established by the town meeting shall be appointed by the moderator unless the motion establishing any ad hoc committee shall name the members, provide for their election, or provide for a different appointing authority. Yeah. All set with that?
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I didn't hear you. I'm
Okay, I'm-
sorry.
I'm
No, that's
reading-
okay. I don't have what you're reading.
Oh, it's
Oh,
right here in
so
the
It's
charter.
in the
It's
charter.
Okay,
'Cause
my fault.
If there were
Wanna
no
share with me?
changes,
Nope, I got my own charter,
if there
thank
were no
you.
changes, I didn't.
You're just,
I-
okay.
Right.
Oh,
All right, good. I see what you're
Section 7
doing.
again, no changes ad hoc. Section 8,
I'm not there yet, Deb.
oh, go ahead, go
Okay,
ahead.
so can we stop on 7?
Yes, ad hoc committees,
All
yep.
right.
Sorry,
All I-
that was my fault.
Yeah, I-
Appointed by the moderator, unless the motion establishing any ad hoc committee, I found this wording confusing myself, section 7.
Okay, I mean, I have to say, I think it's clear. It says, town meeting, if there's an ad hoc committee created at town meeting, they will be appointed by the moderator.
Right.
Unless the motion to create the ad hoc committee says the select board, for example, would name the members, et cetera.
Or the motion would include naming the members.
Or the motion, yes.
Right.
So if the motion does not include that Susie and Frank and Ethel are going to be the members of this ad hoc committee, then the moderator will name the members of that ad hoc
Motion
committee.
There's an article on town meeting, Noreen, that says that to see if
Okay.
the town will approve creating a,
Ad hoc committee to study turtles.
to study, yes, oh yes, to study turtles. And the motion says, accept and adopt and appoint the game warden to appoint this committee.
I guess part of my problem was I was trying to envision when this would happen. I mean, if it's the moderator reappointing some finance committee
local
people.
plan-
This is different, that's not an
No,
ad
it's
hoc
not.
committee.
Local planning
Right.
committee was a vote of town meeting, was it not? So that would be an ad
Ad
hoc
hoc committee,
committee, and
yes.
town meeting specified it would be appointed.
By
in
the
way-
select board.
Well,
Or
different-
there would be certain people on it.
specified, yeah, where people would come from to populate that committee. So that's an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Finance committee is a regular committee.
I gave a bad example.
Okay.
All right, so let me give another one. When I read this, I didn't take it to mean a motion on an existing article. I took it to mean a motion from the floor.
No,
Could be a motion from anybody, could be the floor. But usually, when you're doing this,
you don't
it's
have a
usually an,
motion from the
yeah, you
floor
can't
on an
have
article.
motion, yeah, you
Yeah, you
can't do
don't
that.
just
That
spring
would
up a
be
town meeting.
outside the scope, as Mr. Ford would say. Because if there was a study on such and thus, somebody making a motion to create an ad hoc committee, he would more than likely say that that was outside the scope of the article,
It'll be
maybe.
outside the scope of the warrant. Town meeting can't just organically decide to create a committee
No.
on the fly, on the floor that night.
Yeah, I meant within the discussion of an article. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
should have said that. If we were discussing your turtles, in the middle of it, if I got up and said, I want to make a but see, a motion, see, I guess
You'd
what
be you'd be
Excuse
making
me.
an amendment to the original motion, yes?
Well, what I was trying to say was that the motion would already be on the floor, so how could I make a motion
You move to amend the main motion.
to pass it and add an ad hoc committee?
You would say, I make a motion, I have an amendment to the main motion to create an ad hoc committee of 12 people to do such and thus.
You don't make a committee an ad hoc committee. A committee becomes an ad hoc committee when it is created for a particular purpose. So, the local planning committee, they've been appointed for a particular purpose. There is conceivably a beginning and an end to them, once their purpose is completed. That's ad hoc.
Like what Leo Kokonis is trying to do with the schools, right? Maybe he wanted an ad hoc committee,
I
do a
don't,
feasibility study or something. Leo,
Oh, if he, on the use of the bogs for educational
Exactly.
purposes.
He may want an ad hoc committee.
Cranberry.
To do a study to
Cranberry
see if it-
exploratory committee.
Exactly,
That would
right,
study
right.
what the town needed to do to make this happen, and then once its purpose was accomplished, the committee goes away.
It's dissolved.
That's ad hoc.
Yep,
It has a stated mission and a beginning and an end.
in an end, right.
Okay,
You all right?
yep,
Okay.
Got it?
yeah.
Okay.
Section 8 is articles having fiscal
I don't disagree, the language
implications.
is a little is a little
It
confusing. I
can
don't know
be
if you could find a
convoluted.
better way to word
I
it.
know, that's all right.
281, all proposed operating expenditures shall be included in a single article in the town meeting warrant. 2, all articles involving an expenditure of town funds shall be considered by the Finance Committee, which shall issue a written recommendation on all such articles. The chairman of the committee or a designated representative shall be present at the town meeting to provide verbal explanations of the committee's recommendations.
Oh, here's a question for you.
I'd like to get rid of chairman. Can we say chair?
Yep, the chair, yep,
That's good.
thank you.
That's fine.
We need to-
Died on that hill once already, but you're right. The question I would ask you is, do you think the Finance Committee should be recommending on non-financial articles?
Can I give a little background on this?
Sure.
Because I was on FinCon the last time it came
And
up.
I was.
Actually, it was after you left. So this came up and they voted on it, and they voted they wanted to continue voting on everything. And I was one of the few no votes because, we had a couple of situations that, shouldn't have happened. Like there was one question about ending funding to the war in Iraq. And, Pete Watson wrote the recommendation, and it started a big brouhaha. They didn't like Pete Watson. Well, I mean, really, Pete Watson's opinion on Iraq, was not,
Well, where is it within the purview of a Finance Committee
right.
to opine on zoning articles?
Unless it has a financial implication.
Well, they will tell you that anything has a financial implication. I've had that discussion with
I'm sure.
more than one Finance Committee member. When we brought up the original idea of a charter enforcement, we called it at the time, I was beaten up over it because it was going to cost money, maybe, if somebody had to go to court over it. And the Finance Committee's like, oh no, this could cost the town thousands of dollars. Well, not really.
I hear what you're saying, but we need definitions then. What is financial, what is non-financial?
I think that it would probably boil down to any article that required an appropriation,
I'm not
a
sure.
direct appropriation.
I guess I'm going to argue the opposite side, which is
Devil's advocate.
we go to town meeting and we have our senior financial management up at the front of the room, which is the select board, the town clerk, we have our moderator, we have the town administrator, we have our finance committee. I guess as a sitting there in the peanut gallery, I like hearing from both sides as to whether or not they have an opinion or not. I think there are a lot of these that you go through that you say, oh, there isn't an appropriation, but it's probably going to cost some aggravation and money. Like the balloons. In order to, we prohibited balloons now, selling the Mylar balloons, the big ones. Okay, somebody had to send a memo out to all the people. There has to be some enforcement if there is going to be. There could be a financial implication. Somebody could sue us. I guess I don't see the reason for saying that, that the finance committee should only do financial stuff. They could always say, we have no opinion.
That never happens.
Never. I've
Yeah, I know,
never
we all
heard
have
that.
opinions, but they could say that, no, they don't have an opinion on this, because they do have the right, no information, no
Recommendation.
recommendation pending
information.
further information. they could do that and say, okay, we're not gonna have an opinion on the balloons, because they have other questions. Put that in there. That's okay too. Go ahead.
I'm going to fight against you.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, first of all, I think the NRFPI recommendation really implies you're really waiting for a piece of information, not a general malaise against voting. But I find that all of the, they all look the same in that capital bold print that I dislike so much, and having 74 recommendations, to me, I find it tedious, and I don't see value from it. I would like to see it go to having them give recommendations on financial items only, and since we're talking about rewriting, as far as the issue of small amounts for a letter or things like that, we could certainly put words in that said, where is it?
Except, you know what? We're talking here in circles. 282. All articles involving an expenditure of town funds shall be considered by the Finance Committee, which shall issue a written recommendation on all such articles.
Yeah.
Finance.
Well,
Anything
and
that
it
has
already
money.
says it, but it hasn't been practiced that way.
I know.
But the
But
finance.
it doesn't say only.
It doesn't say only,
It's not exclusive, right?
and if it's
But it's
not
just
in the
saying-
charter, then
Right.
therefore you can do it. Or not do it.
Well, you could always replace the word
All
all
with only.
with only.
And we are rewriting.
It says all articles
That should be-
involving an
all-
expenditure.
Only those articles involving an expenditure. You could say it that way.
Or
And by the way,
involving
they-
significant expenditure.
Well, it's just something to think about.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I
Put
I
that, yeah,
hear
put
you.
that under 2.8.
And
you
there
know.
needs to be a comma after committee. Before which. That's just my
Oh, got
business
it, got it.
communication though.
Yeah.
Okay, should the FinCom vote on all articles? Should that be a change?
I guess the thing to do might be to go through the warrants, when you have nothing better to do, and look at recommendations and think about whether it was really helpful. As I say, zoning. How deeply does the FinCom go into zoning? Why would they even have an
No, I
opinion?
hear you, yeah.
Other than as individual members, as a FinCom, because zoning is zoning. Anyway,
They've been doing that for years.
I know that. I
Yeah.
know that, and it's bothered me for years, so. Even back when we were writing this, I think it was
And
discussed.
And I think the written recommendation is helpful on a lot of articles.
On a lot of them it
Because a
is.
lot of articles, you have no idea what the background is, particularly when you get into, shall the town sell the property at, and they give some reference, and you have no idea what the
Well,
reference
that's
is.
a financial thing.
That's a financial, but
Absolutely.
having a reference as to why this is being sold doesn't,
But you would have a recommendation on an
Yeah.
article
Right.
like that.
Well, that kind of tightens the finance, the finance, finance board, the finance committee. It tightens them a little bit. Don't give recommendations on anything that does not
you
have.
do not have to.
Right.
I'm not,
Maybe the problem is in the title of the finance. If you think they should opine on everything, maybe the committee name needs to be different.
The other thing I'll
Town
throw
Meeting
in
Advisory Board.
um,
oh, yes.
is
Oh,
I
yeah.
actually watch the finance committee meetings, and
You really have no life, do you?
I know, I didn't make it through the last one, but I have to improve that. But, not that I'm going to control what they do, but a lot of time is spent on, for instance, petition articles. It's very rare. I've done one myself, but it's not, I shouldn't say very rare, it's not common for a petition article to have a financial, a stated, an appropriated amount in it, so it just seems, like time is put on here that You know, I'd like to see more in finance, that's just my opinion.
Of course, we also need to make it easier for them to get information when there's a
Right.
roadblock,
That's a
too.
whole different, yeah, that's a
Right.
whole different section.
But at any rate, I'm in the only articles, not all articles,
Yeah.
camp.
Well, I have a question. Who has the finance committee to review? That's you, isn't it?
Me?
I think that's,
I don't think so.
who's finance?
Okay.
I'm, select board,
I don't think mine
not
was.
in here.
It's not in here, it's not on here.
Maybe we should have a section on the finance committee.
Not here, Lynn.
There should be a,
Down at the bottom, number 9, it says.
oh, financial provisions and procedures. Ah, Sandy,
I was afraid of that.
might be a good idea if you have a chat with the chair of the finance committee
I can do
about that,
I think we've.
that
made it-
very topic, because what did they think?
Well, I know what they think. I'm pretty sure I know what they think. Maybe not, maybe they surprise me.
As part
can
of
do
your,
that.
as part of your financial review, include
Okay.
that as a question. You know, do they really want to be giving, do they want to be opining on everything? Do they think they have to?
Okay. All right.
We brought that
Since
up.
he and Dana have both served on both sides of the
Yes.
moderator at town meeting, I'm not sure I've ever had that direct conversation with him. That would be interesting.
Good.
Okay, good.
We've all sat on both sides of the moderator.
Yeah, as have I.
Term on FinCom.
I
after.
haven't, I've only been on one
Well, we can
side.
change that.
That's quite all right. I should have realized you'd say that.
Desperate times. Okay.
I have a question, which is, where in this charter goes the discussion of new full-time jobs or changes from part-time to full-time requiring a separate article?
Well, it doesn't.
And I'm not saying
I
I'm
don't
on
think
what
it's
side of the
specific.
pony I'm on.
It doesn't
'Cause-
specifically, and that's been the problem. It was understood when the charter was originally written, and I'm just trying to go
I
back.
think, is it 641?
Is it-
642? I know it by heart by now.
Vacancies.
Yeah, that's
talking
vacancies.
2
We're talking about,
newly employed.
no, we're talking about a financial review. You're talking about new positions being required to be in an article.
Right.
A separate article.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't say that.
Doesn't say that anywhere in here. So would that be, because this line, all proposed operating expenses shall be included in a single article. And there's nowhere else in this charter that I can find
Well, that's-
that talks about,
Well, it
you know,
does-
regardless of what it
does-
said in 1986,
No, it
this
does-
is what we got.
It does as it was understood and operated, and I can actually give you.
Meaning, where is it in this charter?
All right.
Because I can't find it in
I don't
this
think
charter.
It is in this charter.
Wait a minute.
About new positions?
There is one.
There is one.
About new positions.
I should know if I had it, but-
I need to go back. Is that it? Oh, yeah, I got it. 452.
Wait a minute, let me get to 452.
Got it earmarked.
Yep.
The creation of any new full-time compensated
452.
petition which requires the approval of the Board of Selectmen shall not become effective until the position has been voted by a fund of town meeting.
So that is the place between that really is probably where, would it be there
Or should it go back to,
to here
yeah,
under articles having financial implication? Because the town administrator can propose a new position. But of course, it can't be funded until, it can't be done until it's been funded, of course.
I don't know whether you all know this or not, but back in April of 2022, I sent an email to our town administrator with a long grid tracing the history of how positions were funded going all the way back to
Yes,
the beginning. It never saw the light of day.
okay,
But if you want, I will make copies for our next meeting if you don't already have it.
that would be good.
Actually,
But I'm just saying, if it's in, Section 5 is talking about the responsibility of the town administrator to create positions, but they can't be hired until they've been funded.
yeah.
Is the place for all proposed operating expenses should be included in a single article, which we actually,
I don't
Which
want
you
to,
actually could
we want to
say
be
with-
specific.
With the exception of,
is this where, with the exception of new full-time or part-time to full-time, which should all be in separate articles, or some wording to that effect, is that where this would go?
that sounds like a very logical place.
Rather than under the town administrator's responsibilities, but under here.
Why does it have to be either or? Why can't it be both?
Sorry?
Why can't it be both places rather than either or?
Unless you change the language on this, because
Yeah.
this could be interpreted by, as long as it's in the budget,
Yeah.
as long as it's in the budget,
No.
it's funded by town
No, with-
meeting.
With a language change, I mean, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Well,
you know.
but the town administrator's responsibility to say, I would like to create a new job called blah, 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 and it's gonna be in this union contract or whatever, at this level, et cetera, et cetera. That goes to the select board, and it is the select board's warrant. So it's not his or her warrant.
Right.
It's the select board's warrant. So I'm not sure you would change the town administrator.
I'm
Roll.
saying perhaps we could add it to 281.
That's what I'm saying, is I'm proposing 281.
Right.
Is that the place, because it says a single article, so in this charter, regardless of what was 1986 or understood, this charter still says a new job goes into the one big article. Should it go in as a separate article?
Well, we might have different positions on that, so I don't know if we want to, I mean, it's not our decision.
Well, we'll
Well, it
be
could
making
be-
recommendations, so
Right.
yes, it is our decision to make a recommendation.
Okay. Well,
We don't get to decide about anything.
okay.
Town meeting
I mean,
does.
personally, in a better format, I support the idea of a chart within Article 4 for the operating budget, a chart designating which positions are new, and we could certainly put that language right in here too, where it has a chart of full-time turtle catcher, under the turtle catching department, supervised by the head turtle catcher, for, $40,000 a year.
Do you know how many people in this town actually read the budget?
Well, it's in there for those of us who do,
Well, it shouldn't have to.
Well, not
we
in the
should-
budget, no, in the way this last one was, well, the last one was in the addendum. I mean, my preference is that it be right
Well,
within Article 4.
how about we get away from a presentation back to the concept? Because the presentation, way at the back, the last page of the warrant book,
Right.
it didn't have, it said $40,000, these are the people, but it didn't have range is 40 to 50 plus 25% or whatever percentage it is benefits. It did not have the whole impact. So separate presentation from the concept of separate article or not. Because presentation is
Okay.
not our purview.
Well, I'll simplify my position by saying I don't support separate articles.
Okay. What about other people?
Why not?
My personal opinion is that I feel it's slightly old-fashioned, and, you know, I just think we're in a time in the world where we are growing, and these things have to be done, and not everyone needs to be highlighted in a separate article. I mean,
Well, not
that's,
every one is, every position.
Every position is.
well, that's what I said, isn't it? Well, every new position, yeah.
So the voters shouldn't have an easy way to determine whether they want to spend the money to fund these things?
Well, there will be a chart in Article 4.
Oh, again, you're in presentation. Get away from presentation. The concept is separate article or not. Clearly, there should be an explanation.
You know.
Yeah. I would say that we need a separate article, and I'm kind of on the mindset of not taking it totally away from
Town administrator?
452, but adding more language to that and keeping it also in, too, so that the two of them correspond with one another. You know, so that way the town administrator definitely knows the role. Okay, I'm going to create a new position, but it can't be funded at town meeting unless I put it in an article to be in the finance, you know,
Okay.
you see where I'm
And that-
going.
And that's mine is the town administration and town organization, which I'll do.
Right.
And I will remember that's a discussion topic for
Topic.
there.
Yeah, because I think having it in both places makes it very clear what his responsibility is and throwing it back to the town. What the town's responsibility is having it in an article. His responsibility, putting it in an article. I'm approving these two positions, Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee. Do you see where I'm going with all of this? Everybody's on board.
Just has to decide if it
Wants
sees the
to-
wisdom of spending that money that way.
Right, and then if you wanted to put it into presentation in a graph, you could do that, and you know, people will know, okay, this position is a possibility of a vote, you know.
Plus, I think
No.
in some way they need to outline the potential
Financial impact.
financial
Right.
implication and vote maybe a sum of
Okay.
money in the article or have it in the budget.
Right.
Question. We had 8, or was it 7, new positions in this town meeting, recent town meeting warrant. There was a lot of conversation in the capital outlay area where there was one article, and it had $2 million for the old middle school, which is now the cultural, I don't know what it's called now.
The 204.
But there were all kinds of other things in there coming up to $5 or $6 million. And there was a lot of conversation at town meeting to take them one by one, which was voted down. Would you do the new positions, an article with 8 new positions in it? Or would you do them one article per position?
I don't see the harm in either. It would be more efficient to do all in one.
One,
And if people
right.
wanted to separate one out, they could
They
amend
can make an
it.
amendment.
But at least it's clear that these are the positions that we're looking to
Got
fund
it.
this
Just
year.
thought I'd ask the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
I agree.
no, I like
No, I
that.
see that,
Go ahead.
It consolidates.
Noreen?
I could get over the fence to having one article that was
Okay.
a standard article every year that had everything in one, because it's the process. If we had 8 in that warrant, you know, I
Right.
don't think the result. But I do have one major problem, but I'm afraid you're gonna call it presentation.
It is, it probably will be, but tell me anyways.
All right. Okay. I do not like the idea of voting the budget first and then supposedly, I mean, that comes before the new article, unless you want to get into that discussion. And so then let's say you have $500,000 for all your new positions. So one of the many suggestions a couple of years ago was, well, then we'll go back and put those amounts in the budget. The problem for people like me, the 4 people who do read the budget, is I'm not going to remember that. And when I look back at the warrant from previous years, when I see salary, fire department, $3 million, I'm not going to remember, oh, wait a minute, there was a second article that added on another $300,000 to that figure. So that is a major problem to me, not having a good comparison.
Okay, but that's a presentation, and I can tell you,
Yeah.
if the fire department or the police department knew there had been a separate article, you can bet your buttons.
Every fireman and policeman would have been at town meeting.
They would have, but also when they're doing their next set of budgets, they would be saying, yes, I know the original town meeting budget was $3 million, but there was a 300, that's really 3.3. So my increase really is only 1.2%, not 10%.
You know,
Because I do know that town administration does, because I know this through the library specifically, that if there is some adjustment that is made, they push it back through the departments,
right, but
so they know Munis.
But the adjustments made during the year are usually much smaller than adding an entire new position.
But I'm just saying they do this.
That's right.
Well,
But for instance, the fire department, as somebody who used to do a lot of research and tracking on new positions, when you look at the fire department, between all of the OT, the different shifts, the many different factors that go into it, and the different steps and increases from year to year, you can't tell if there's a new body in there or not. You just plain, it's not like, you know.
So now you're arguing,
That's exactly the
so
problem.
now you're arguing the other side, which is they should all be in a separate article.
No,
So you can
Yeah,
tell.
no.
because you
I'm
can't
not.
find them.
No, I'm not. I'm arguing that they should be in Article 4.
Okay.
That way they're in the budget. Or if you wanted to have them in the budget and have us vote that first and then,
I would suggest that we look at the possibility of having those newly funded positions in an article ahead of the budget.
I know that's been suggested, it's scary.
Why is it scary?
Yes,
Because by the time you get to the budget, you know whether you've
That's
got those
right.
positions. If they've been factored into the budget, which is what I would
They
do if I
do.
were budgeting, you factor it into the
Right.
budget. If they failed, you're ready to say, okay, this is the budget, but these are the changes because we're not funding these new positions.
I agree. I mean, I like them being in the budget numbers,
Well, they would.
however we get there.
Yeah, usually, I think
But
it used
they're-
to be that you'd fund them in the article in the first year, and then they'd be in the budget in the second year. But if you know you're gonna try to fund them, then let's get that article out of the way first, and then you know what you need for your budget, and if you're, Finance Committee is always prepared.
She's clearly talking presentation.
But,
No.
no, I don't think so.
Exactly.
But also,
Sorry, I was-
keep in mind that whether it's a new position in the budget or a separate article, it's to be, the wording of the article is to be paid for through appropriation, tax levy, blah, blah, blah. There's that wording in there. So when town administration is spending $50 million on a budget, on all of everything, they're starting with, because if you look at their one-liners, which they don't issue anymore, but he used to say we had $50 million of tax revenue to spend, and there'd be 25 that was a town budget, there'd be 20 that would be Monomoy Regional School District, there'd be 5 that would be the tech school, then there would be other things in there that would be funded through revenues that have been raised and appropriated, that language, like we pay for things out of town budget, the appropriation, and they're in there in a different article.
Right.
So this would be no different. You're not like you're spending the money twice.
Right.
But you're saying, we don't know if we're gonna get these articles, because you also don't want it, I would say, to then stand up and say, okay, everybody, here are the changes. Line 6 in the budget in the back, add $25,000. Line 22, does anybody write those down? Nobody has that that would waste time by itself. Back to the question. Regardless of where it is in the warrant, before or after, whatever, separate article for the new and part-time to full-time positions, that kind of change, separate article or not. That's the issue. Yes? Yes? Yep.
One separate article.
One article.
One separate article.
That works.
I'm almost a yes. I gotta think about
So
that.
people can actually see it without having to work for it.
Right.
Because if people have to work for this stuff, they just don't. They need
Yeah.
to be able to see it easily and where they're going to be reading it. And if it's at the head of the warrant, I mean, it's up to the selectmen where they place it.
Right.
But if they were operating under this and they were smart, they'd put it before the budget. And it's right there for people to see, and they can go, oh my God, we're gonna hire 4 new firefighters for $50 million and.
I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that.
When has this town ever turned down the fire department
Or the police.
or the police?
But, and also, and any
Although when they
conversation.
get their clickers, you never know.
That's true, we get the clickers, you never know. So I think we're in general agreement with one reluctant person on 281, including something like all proposed operating expenses and $7 with the exception of new full-time or part-time and full-time, part-time to full-time individual positions. Are we there? Okay, cool.
Will be grouped in a separate article.
So I think
I'm
you
just
can
finishing
record
my
that
sentence.
as 4.5%, 4.5 people voted aye and half a person
That's
voted
right.
no.
Yeah.
We're not voting.
I know, I just thought I'd.
She's just cranking your chain.
She's,
Remember your chain?
she's good
cranking
at
it.
that, she's good at
That
that.
sounds like presentation.
All right, well, all
Well,
set with
I think
the
it's Bart.
8-2? We're all set with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
8.3, unless the article has been submitted by petition under clause 2-4-1, no article calling for the appropriation of funds shall be included in any special town meeting warrant unless proposed expenditure has been recommended by the select board and the finance committee, acting separately at separate meetings. Fine? Okay, and then finally, section 9, all town officers, the chairman of, or we'll say chair of
Gotta
town
get chair outta here.
agencies,
Compulsory.
division directors,
Yeah.
and department heads, or their duly designated representatives shall attend sessions of the town meeting when proposals affecting their particular office, agency, division, department, or function are included in the warrant. The absence of these persons shall not invalidate the actions of the town meeting.
Sounds good
I
to me.
think that's fine.
Cool. All right. I do have a suggestion that we need to fix the bylaws. There is a bylaw, where are you? It's chapter 271.16, or -16. It's under town meeting. And it says, votes of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee establishing recommendations regarding town meeting articles shall be made available upon the request of any registered voter at a regular or special town meeting. Annual Town Meeting, May 2019, Article 55. We voted that in the warrant had to be the individual votes of each person.
Right.
Yay or nay, or whatever they're doing. So I'm going to propose as part of this report is that Chapter 271-16 is that it has to be, the wording has to be the same or changed because of that article. Because I was reading through these and I said, wait a minute, we changed that as an article. So I pulled out my book and I found it and I said, yeah, there it is. And I know that the Finance Committee wanted to adopt it instead of individual voting records with a total voting record of, say, the Finance Committee would say 3-2 or 4-1 or whatever. And town meeting said no. They wanted the individual person how they voted. So that's one that has to go into our little report
Oh, to comport,
to comport.
as someone would say.
So just that bylaw change, because I think that unfortunately, the article didn't change the bylaw. So this is a housekeeping.
Are we gonna go through the bylaw?
We can do that next. Well, hang on a minute. Are we good?
I think so. Anyone have any
Wait till the last
questions?
one, that's the only reason.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
So we good?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think you've got a little homework. I think we've got some possible wording for that section 231 of the spring and fall town meetings. The household with the registered voters, adding the separate article for the new and improved positions. And Sandy is going to check with the finance, when she chats with the finance committee, on voting on all town articles versus voting on financial ones. I think it would be good to get their input. What do they think? As a committee, what do they think? All right. The bylaw, you had some comments on the 271, chapter 271 of the bylaws, which is the town meeting.
I have a question on 271.3 when we get there, but I was actually
The
fine
10th.
with everything else.
Admittance to the town meeting floor.
Yeah.
It's 271.3.
I don't think I have it.
Well, it's in the bylaws,
Okay,
right? So it's here, it's 271.3 for your minutes.
yeah,
Admittance to town meeting floor.
okay.
Noreen, question?
Oh, okay. I don't have a problem with the way this is written. I had a memory from a couple of years ago at one annual town meeting when people were very contrary to non-voting people
It was just the
speaking.
last town meeting. It's the
Last
first
town
time it
meeting.
ever happened.
Right, and, okay, last time, see, time is dragging. And at any rate, the particular memory I have was the one with the superintendent of schools being, At any rate, I thought the moderator said, if I have one no vote, we can't allow the person to speak. Now, I certainly could have misheard him.
No, that's exactly right.
But here, see, this language I like better, even though this is probably something that won't come up hardly ever again, I would hope. But this one says, without majority consent, not that it just needs one no vote. So, I mean, I have no problem with this language. It's just that at the time, he might have just been,
I think he was really commenting on the fact that people said they didn't want to hear from the superintendent. And he
yeah.
said, you don't want to hear from your superintendent?
Right,
I'm going to allow it, which,
I agree.
Well, I actually think it should be at the discretion of the moderator. I see no need for everybody to vote. He's not gonna let people speak who shouldn't be speaking.
I think that's true too.
We could change
It's
that.
it's his meeting. I mean, when you get right down to it, or without prior consent of the moderator. So if somebody's coming to town meeting with the intention to speak, they need to get to the moderator ahead of the meeting and say,
I'd like to speak.
I'd like to
Well,
speak.
it does say the floor shall be occupied solely by registered voters. Moderator to clear the floor, and yes, he always says you're supposed to be over there.
Bill Galvin's always in the front row. Hi, Bill.
But he is at least a voter.
Huh?
Non-voters shall not address the meeting without majority consent thereof, provided that the moderator may allow a non-resident department head. And the moderator does ask that, does anybody have an objection to
Yes, he
so-and-so speaking in answering such and thus?
Yes.
So the topic, therefore, is majority consent. Non-voters, majority consent. Is that something that you would suggest changing in the bylaw?
I mean, this language to me was fine. I do also like the idea of just having the moderator decide. I mean, I could go either way on that. I don't see the necessity of everybody trying to figure out who it is and saying yes either, but.
Well, I think it eliminates the kind of contentious voting that people do on the subject, because it is flat out rude
Right.
for somebody to object to allow somebody to speak. Now, again, it should be up to the moderator, and I think, the moderator's got enough judgment to decide that.
And the moderator did
Harry.
this year, there was a point where there were people who wanted to speak to some of the petition articles, and there'd already been enough conversation, and he
Right,
said,
it
no,
was a-
I'm not going to recognize you. So we did take that tact.
And also, some of those individuals were, you know, part of a formed group going from town to town. It was a little different than, you know, a non-voter, say, from Harwich wanting to get up and speak or something like that.
I don't see any difference. Somebody wants to speak, they either get to speak or they don't. I mean,
You could construe this as
If
non,
somebody's a resident, I feel they'd be a more weight, but
non-voters shall not address the meeting without majority consent of who? The non-voters or the
The
voters? It's not clear.
yeah,
That
but it
is
is
true.
it is the town, it is the people on the town meeting floor.
I would advocate to just putting it in the hands of the
I
moderator.
like that.
Okay. For your report. So 271-3 would be a bylaw change. What is that?
That's just my,
Oh, turn
sorry.
it off.
yes, ma'am.
Please turn it off.
He's sorry.
All should be turned off.
She's tough.
Just keeps
All right,
dinging.
what are we doing for the language?
271-3,
got it.
it would be a bylaw change,
Yeah.
proposed bylaw change. And it says, non-voters shall not address the meeting. What we are proposing is taking out without majority consent thereof.
Okay.
But you're also saying, however, that the moderator may allow a non-resident, hold on a minute. Non-voters shall not address the meeting. You want to take out without majority consent, but replace it with at the discretion of the moderator?
Okay.
Well, wouldn't that have to be a shall address?
Yes. Non-voters shall be allowed to address the meeting at the discretion of the moderator. I believe is what we're saying here, as a bylaw change.
I have another question.
Okay, are we done with that one? We good?
I think so, yeah, I got
Okay.
it, yep.
I'm sorry, but I can't find my reference to it, but my question was, on the section that deals with the timing, how long people can speak, the
Oh,
10
yes.
minutes.
217-7. 271-7.
27.
Oh, yeah.
No one
okay.
shall speak on the same question more than twice, not longer than 10 minutes, without
Right.
leave of the meeting.
I mean, personally, I feel 10 minutes is too long, you know? And also, I don't understand why it always has to be like either 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you know? You know, I'm wondering more, you know, like, could it be 6 or 7? You know, that seems to be right, but what I'm leading to is that the moderator could set the time at the beginning of the meeting for people, if we put a range in. And he could then decide if there's 100 articles, maybe he only wants to let people speak for 4 minutes. You know, if there's only 45 articles, maybe he wants to let people speak for 6 minutes, you know. But that's what I was thinking in general, was that maybe it could be an amount that could vary, not always with a top cap of 10.
But he gets that, the moderator gets that ability because it says, no one shall speak not longer than 10 minutes. The moderator could set at the beginning, people get 5 minutes to speak on each article.
Yeah.
They can speak no more than twice. This is no more than 10 minutes.
No, you're right.
So you've already got that built in.
But it's never announced, it's never communicated, is it? At the beginning of the meeting? You only have,
He usually does, he
oh,
usually.
he does, okay, all right. I
He
just-
usually says something about people will be able to speak twice. I think he usually says, I'm going to wait for everybody to speak once before you get a second shot.
Okay,
So I know he does that. He'll say, you've already spoken, let's let other people,
yes,
you know,
and
he
you're
does
right,
that.
yes.
And he's got sole authority, not he, the moderator has the authority as to who gets recognized and who doesn't. Just like any chair of any meeting gets the authority to recognize or not recognize people. I'm not sure that needs any change.
No, now that you pointed out, it doesn't need to be changed. I just wish, I hope we can, somehow get the message out that less talk, more business would,
The primary thing is so that when people stand up, they stand up with a piece of paper with the 3 points they want to make, and make them.
Yeah.
Because I think, but that's
People
a,
get sick of hearing it, somebody will move the question and that'll shut
that's
everybody
right.
off.
You get the ability to move the question. If somebody has heard it enough times, move the question, it's non-debatable, and it passes, it's just majority.
It's the beauty of town meeting. Town meeting, everybody has the right to say,
Yeah. I agree. I just think a lot can be said in 5 minutes. I think 10 minutes is a really long time for a situation like a town meeting, not a presentation on a specific topic, that's all.
And I do know, I have heard our current moderator say at times, very politely, are you going to get to the point?
Right.
As somebody starts taking the helicopter ride, and it's like, you have to speak on the article. And he is pretty,
He controls his meeting pretty
he
well.
does,
He does.
as a
He does.
moderator, he
Yeah.
controls the meeting quite well.
right.
Okay, we good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, that was tremendous. Good conversation, and very good. All right. So what we'll do is we'll give you some time, and we'll put this on a future agenda. When you get that put back together, you can let me know.
Yep.
I think the old business, we had looked at Chapter 1 in the preamble last time. Sandy had put together some wording. Well, what I did, Sandy, is I took the original and I put your suggested wording right in so we could see how it looks.
This really confused me actually, but that's okay. I'm easily confused. Okay.
So, Chapter 1, we had talked
gotcha.
about, see how in it, the one in italics,
Beautiful.
well, it's to have it, see how it would look in it. Of course it's well done, I did it.
No lack of confidence here. huh?
No, of course not. So, the change was, Sandy had agreed that she would write that section 132 in italics, which is the new section, that the Harwich Home Rule Charter is essentially the town constitution that establishes the government structure and outlines its authority and its limitations. Under Home Rule, the town is empowered by state law to do anything not specifically denied by the state constitution, the General Assembly, or the Charter itself. In the absence of specific language in the Charter regarding a matter of local governance, the bylaws of the town would prevail. In the absence of specific language in the Charter or bylaws, relevant Massachusetts general law prevails. We had talked about saying, what's the pecking order of how we govern ourselves? To make sure that people understand it's the Charter. If it's not in the Charter, you go to a bylaw. If it's not in the bylaw, it's Mass General Law.
And when you get all these things said and done, and it'll eventually wind up at the Attorney General's office.
Anyways.
Who will let you know whether you've colored inside the lines properly.
I think that's well written.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
It's well, very nicely written, fits right in there.
Looks nice in italics too.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we said that's the new language.
Looks good.
So we good with this?
Yes, definitely.
Cool. All right.
Looking at your notes on the back, if people didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
I did.
Right, the select board changed. We're adding the words for the first, the charter, the bylaws, Mass General Law. And I said, see the 132 new section. And the other things that we had were changing from open town meeting to representative town meeting, town manager from town administrator, and the elected by precinct and one at large. I really liked that one. Who came up with that? Was that you, Noreen? I liked that one.
With me.
So, I think that language looks good. All right. So that was town meeting. Next comes up select board for town, for Noreen.
That's me.
So that'll be our next meeting, will be the select board section. And is there anything else for future agenda items?
I think we're making good progress here.
Do you want to keep this?
I can print it, thank you.
Okay.
Do you want me to try to meet up with Peter and or Dana or the finance committee?
That would be good.
Yes, and I will follow up on the Mass General Law as
Where are
well.
you?
So this would be chapter 2, town meeting.
I think yeah, well, I can talk.
Follow up with the FinCom.
Huh?
Probably.
Yeah.
Follow up with the FinCom, all articles. All right, our next meeting is November 14th.
Okay,
I'm gonna probably give you a call in the next couple of days, so you can remind me what it is I'm reporting on.
All right, I'll put together a list. I'll do the list.
I have some things to distribute. if
I
that's
seem
okay.
to be having a very vague memory of this. Thinking, what am I supposed to be doing
I
here?
don't remember it either.
Thank you.
See, I did, because I wrote it down. I said, ooh, Sandy's on the ticket for
just
that.
writing that line,
Well,
1, 3, 2.
I'm good with that. I'm good with
I-
putting
I-
the list together and writing the report.
I don't mind any of that, I just,
I
be
wanted to share
reminded that
the.
Hang on a minute.
Yep.
I agreed to something.
All right, I'll put that list together and I'll keep the running list. Okay, Doreen, you had something to share?
Sure. I attended the open meeting
Oh.
training session a couple of weeks ago, and I had been previously, but it had been quite a few years. And they actually do have slides on the website. But they had these handouts, and there were enough interesting things in there that I thought I
Oh, thank
grabbed
you.
a couple extra, and then I made some copies. But it's mostly on, the first part that looks kind of boring is actually on advice to people on what they can and cannot do boards when they're handling public comment. But what I really liked for reference was there was some checklists on minute taking, and also what I was really interested in, not so much for this committee, but executive sessions, how to go in, how to go out, what you do with your minutes and stuff like that. So again, this is just from KP, and I thought there was some good stuff. I've been in executive session a lot lately.
Oh,
so
good, yeah.
needed a-
Which I think a bunch of this stuff is also in the committee handbook.
Yes, it is. Yep.
I think one thing that,
Oh, you took my pen.
all right, thank you, Doreen, for this. This is good.
just one comment here, the public body checklist here, this is from September 2017. We now record the meetings. So
Right.
I don't believe minutes have to be as detailed as they once were.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Although I will tell you, because that, other people brought up that topic quite a bit, and she said, what she said was, listen, the minutes are supposed to say who said what, not just vote, so.
Oh, yeah, no,
you know,
that I get,
um,
yes.
She gave a preference to a much more detailed minute style than I sometimes see, you know, let me
Right.
put it that way.
Right.
And people said, well, now they're recording, and she said, well, I'm gonna tell you that for me, it's,
With all the computer skills that people have these days, I wonder if they shouldn't just print out a transcript.
Select board minutes used to be a transcript.
Well, they pretty much are now.
They're getting there.
Yeah. They just consider, but, you know, you've got all of this technology that could sit there and a computer could at least run out a transcript that you could go through and edit.
AI could do.
Absolutely. The idea of having to sit and write endless minutes at this point is kind of archaic.
Yes, that was my point.
I know,
Yeah.
I get it.
And actually, but reading the minutes, because there was a situation a couple of select board meetings ago that I was reading the minutes, and it was, wait a minute, that's not correct. And so I contacted a select board member, and the person said, yes, you're right, that is not what was said, and they held the minutes, and then had them recast, and then 2 weeks later put them back, and they were a more fair representation of what was going on. All right, anything else this evening, ladies?
No, madam, it is.
All right, is that motion to adjourn at 6:30?
So moved.
Second. Third.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Sandy, would you turn that thing off?
Please.